You know that world of high-end luxury? Priceless art, glittering gold, rare gems? It's a world that seems built on glamour and unbelievable wealth. But it's also hiding a pretty dangerous secret. One that connects international crime rings from Miami all the way to Hong Kong. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how it all works. Right, so behind that shimmering facade of the luxury market, there's a shadow economy. And this isn't just about avoiding a little tax here and there. We're talking about cleaning dirty money on a massive global scale. Transnational criminal organizations have figured out a frankly brilliant and kind of terrifying way to turn their illegal profits into assets that look totally legit.
Okay, so that sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But the answer gets to the very heart of a huge criminal enterprise. And this isn't some hypothetical question either. These were the exact items at the center of a real investigation called Operation Apex, which was targeting a crime ring that stretched all the way from the US to Asia.
And there it is. That's the punchline. These aren't just luxury goods. For criminals, they're financial tools. A group known as the Wu Gang was using the trade in all these things, from illegal shark fins to drug trafficking, to launder millions of dollars. The money was then funneled through businesses that dealt in gold, precious metals, and diamonds, totally obscuring where it came from in the first place.
So why this method? Why not something else? Well, because these items basically create the perfect criminal toolkit. Just think about it for a second. You can hold $1 million worth of diamonds in the palm of your hand. You can move gold across a border way easier than a giant suitcase full of cash. And once that gold is melted down or a diamond is resold, its history is pretty much erased. It is the ultimate way to make illegal cash just disappear into a legit-looking asset.
Let's start with a true classic: gold. It's been a symbol of wealth for, thousands of years? But for today's criminals, it's something even better. It's the perfect accomplice in a financial crime.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote is from the Financial Action Task Force. They're the global watchdog for money laundering and terrorist financing. They've singled out gold as a huge problem, specifically because it's so good at turning that dirty cash into clean, anonymous assets that you can move anywhere in the world.
And this is why it works so well. Gold is what's called fungible, which is just a fancy way of saying a bar of gold from a legal mine looks exactly the same as one bought with drug money once they're both melted down. Its history is just gone. Its high value means you don't need a warehouse to store your wealth, and because it's accepted everywhere, you can cash out pretty much anywhere in the world, often with no questions asked.
So, how does this actually happen in the real world? Well, let's take a look at the case of Elemental LLC, a major gold refinery right here in the US. They were processing billions, that's billions with a B, of dollars worth of gold. And sure, on paper, they had a compliance officer and an anti-money laundering policy. But in practice, they weren't looking too closely at what was coming through their doors.
Now, a proper anti-money laundering program, or AML program, is supposed to stop this. You're supposed to verify your customer, figure out where the gold came from, watch for red flags. Elemental, well, they kind of did none of that. They failed to do basic know-your-customer checks. They accepted gold that was likely smuggled. They even ignored news reports that their suppliers were mixed up in illegal activities. And to top it all off, their own employees were in on it, smuggling gold and bribing officials.
The consequences, they were pretty severe. Elemental was forced to forfeit $15 million. They also got banned from the London bullion market, which is a massive blow to your reputation and your business. The key lesson here is that turning a blind eye has a very real and very high price.
All right, let's shift gears from gold to a world that's even more subjective, even more opaque, the multi-million-dollar fine art industry. You see, if gold is the perfect accomplice, then fine art, well, that's the perfect disguise.
For a long time, the art market has basically been the Wild West of high-value assets. Anonymity isn't just common, it's often expected. And prices can be completely subjective. I mean, who's to say a painting is really worth $1 million or $10 million? That makes it incredibly easy to manipulate a sale. Throw in the common use of offshore accounts and shell companies, and you've got yourself a perfect recipe for money laundering.
So let me introduce you to a guy named Philip Rivkin. He was a businessman in the biodiesel industry, but his real business was fraud. He needed a way to make all his dirty money look squeaky clean, and he turned to the art world to pull it off. First, let's just get a sense of the scale of this crime. Rivkin's company wasn't really making biofuel. He was selling fake energy credits to big companies, and he defrauded them out of $78 million. So what do you do with that much dirty cash?
you go shopping. Rivkin bought over 2,000 pieces of art, including a photography collection worth over $15 million. He was literally transforming his criminal profits into a sophisticated, highbrow art collection.
But the story doesn't end well for him. He got caught, and the final price tag for his crimes was 10 years in prison and a massive, massive fine.
And look, Rivkin is just one guy. This is a global issue. A 2020 U.S. Senate investigation uncovered that two Russian oligarchs, the Rottenberg brothers, used a web of shell companies to buy over $18 million worth of art right after sanctions were slapped on them. They were using the art market as a direct way to get around international law.
For years and years, these markets operated deep in the shadows, but the walls are finally starting to close in. Regulators all over the world have woken up to this threat, and a global crackdown is now well underway.
You can really see the momentum building right here. The Panama Papers leak back in 2016 was a huge wake-up call for everybody, exposing just how deep these connections between shell companies and the art world really were. Then, by 2020, both the EU and the US took major steps, officially labeling the art market as high risk and forcing it to follow the same kinds of financial rules as banks.
So what does all this actually mean in practice? Well, it means the old days of no questions asked are over. Now dealers in auction houses have to register with regulators, they have to do their due diligence on who they're selling to and buying from, and, this is the big one, they have to report any activity that seems suspicious. The responsibility is now squarely on their shoulders.
So, after all that, what are the key things to remember? And more importantly, how can the industry protect itself from being used by criminals? The solution really starts with just being diligent. It comes down to some basic but absolutely critical steps. Verify who you're dealing with. Confirm the history of the item, its provenance, to make sure it's legit. Be really wary of deals that seem too good to be true, like a buyer who's willing to pay way over market value. Definitely question large cash payments, and have a clear way for your employees to report anything that just feels off.